Okay, welcome back. So today, podcasting, why podcast and scripting. Okay. Part of what you're doing, yes, you're informing people. You're trying to teach them things. You're trying to teach them to be a better person, live better, run a better business. Accounting, bookkeeping, we can go on and on, which you may be trying to teach people. But if you're talking to them via a podcast, for that matter, if you're speaking to them on stage, things like that, people aren't going to listen to you unless you're somewhat entertaining. There's got to be a direction, and there's got to be some sort of entertainment and value to keep people listening. For the most part, if you don't have them in the first 5 to 10 seconds, all you're going to hear is crickets. Okay. None of us really like the sound of the crickets. That's for sure. Okay. So, scripting. And the reason for scripting is direction. Direction makes it easier for everybody to be on board with what is going on. It is a guideline. When we talk about scripting in this particular case, because it's generally a podcast, either a rant like I'm doing right now, or it could be a interview process like what you might hear tomorrow when I have another interview show edited. Okay, so when you bring on a guest to be on with you, they need an agenda. They need to know what are we going to talk about? And your audience needs an agenda. What am I listening to? Like today, we're talking about why should you podcast and scripting. So how to develop that script. First thing I like to do is this. I usually like to, once I contacted somebody and I'm ready to bring them on the show, I like for them to actually provide me with a few questions that they think that people need to know. But they might be afraid to ask that question. It's like, let's say from out of your mortgage broker, well, how do you get to what my interest rate is going to be? Some people might be afraid to ask that question, but you definitely need to know the answer to that question because it affects what your payment's going to be. You probably need to know that ahead of time. Or same idea, mortgage broker, and the idea of you may have been sent to collections on something at one time. Okay, well, how does that affect me being able to get a mortgage? Is my payment going to go up? Am I not going to qualify? How is this going to affect? And some people are actually afraid to ask that question. Thank God on that one, I haven't gone through that process of getting a mortgage. The mortgage broker usually asks you. But there's a whole host of other questions that people might be afraid to ask. And you as an expert should have those answers, and you should be able to, in an interview process, be able to tell the audience what the answer to those questions are. Not only what the questions are they might be afraid to ask, but actually be able to give those answers to what those questions are. And you as the person interviewing need to be able to know what those questions are so you can ask them during the process. Now, I'm going to also advise you with this, okay? Remember to ask every question in an open-ended manner. This is about a conversation. Yes, the script is there for a guideline. Yes, the script is there so that everybody knows what the agenda is. But you need to keep the questions open-ended, because I usually ask for a series of 10 questions, and I have actually seen this happen live on air where the person asks the questions. Yep. No. Well, maybe. 10 minutes into an hour show, all 10 questions are now exhausted, and we have 50 minutes of show left. Not exactly a comfortable place to be. So you have to be able to fix that. Again, if this show would have been scripted exactly properly, we wouldn't have run into this problem. So we need to make sure that we are scripting things in a way that we get not only the answers that we're looking for, so that our audience is now informed and also entertained, but the time is filled with lots of information, because you don't want to leave it that the person tunes back out again not feeling educated. So you have to entertain the person as the podcast goes forward, and you have to make sure you're providing valid information. So all this will be achieved by putting together a valid script. Okay, so I'm going to give you my formula. My formula is exactly this. I ask the person to send me ahead of time 10 questions that they feel they need to have an answer to. And they will send me those questions, and then I will actually go and look on their website and things like that to see what the possible answers are, and to decide which questions to ask. Because this has actually happened where we brought a guest on and we were given the 10 questions, but the conversation only was asked around one question, because there was so much information around that one question that we actually had to bring the guest back on a couple times to get more and more information on what it is that they did. They were very informative, and each show that we did with this person, well, I'll tell you who it is. It was Robin Matak. She is a life coach in Richmond, BC. So you might want to go Google that and look her up. She's an expert in relationships and living life to the fullest. And we only got to have, we still have a list of 8 questions that we never asked her, because each answer took an hour to actually get through all the information that would answer the very first that opening question. It led to a series of other questions, which led to a series of answers and it was all pretty much so scripted in ahead of time. It was a guideline that we knew what the questions were going to be, and we also knew what the answers were going to be. So that becomes important. So ask for 10 questions. Now go back and research what those answers were. Put some proposed notes in so that as your conversation develops later on, you can refer back to the notes and keep yourself sounding in a educated manner to what the topic is. Okay. Because last thing you want to do is ask a question and then not know what the answer is. It isn't going to be very entertaining. Maybe some details you might not quite get, but for the most part, you want to know what the bottom line answer could possibly be. Okay? All right. So, let's go through this again. I'm going to go through this several times because I want you to understand what scripting actually means, and actually how having a producer to help you go through this, because here at Depictions, we would actually help you by finding you a producer to help you get through your first series of podcasts, so that maybe you catch on to the formula a little bit, or maybe you just decide that you want to keep the producer there with you. Okay, I'll go through it again. Script. It is an agenda and a guideline. You want to ask for a series of questions from the person you're going to interview, so that you know what the answers will be after you go back and research through the person's website and maybe some other places. Also, so that you can keep the conversation flowing, because a flowing conversation is very entertaining rather than a series of yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. So it isn't exactly the best of entertainment. So, okay. So, that's scripting. It isn't exactly line by line, but it turns into bullet points, guidelines, and notes so that you understand what answers are going to be. Scripting in other areas of entertainment become way more rigid, but in this particular instance, we don't have to actually be at that rigid. We just need to have a basic guideline so we know what's going to happen. Okay? Because as the person doing the interviewing, your job is to make the other person being interviewed look good. All right. Scripting in a nutshell. Remember, guidelines, agenda, questions, known answers. Pretty basic and simple. Okay? If you have any other questions, please feel free to click on our contact page, send me the questions or comments via the depictions.media website. Okay, I will talk to everybody tomorrow, and thanks for listening.